maybe do the recording now. Okay. All right. Okay. Any other question?
Yes. On the order sheet, it says my name's Aaron. It says I have no submission. I submitted my PowerPoint. Is there anything else that I needed to submit?
My list may be outdated, Aaron. So let me check it again. If it's already submit, then I have not. That list is like last week or when I mean the due date. So it's okay. I'll
Okay, I'm just making sure I wasn't forgetting anything else.
Yeah. So thanks for reminding. Okay. All right. Go ahead.
I have a question.
Yes. Who's that?
Nirjala.
Nijara. Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, I found an error in my PowerPoint that I submitted. It's just a minor mistake.
Update it. Anyone, feel free to update yours because as I talked to Carrie, okay, I think he asked the same question. Your presentation, your file is like constitute 50%, and then your presentation is 50%. Okay. And then, I think if you have something to improve, go ahead. So then that would make your storytelling more effective. And then beside that, I want this session in a way that you learn new technology, because that's why I kind of, like try to pave in good foundation for you during all those lectures that I talk to you or I share with you. And now I'm using this session to validate our understanding from each of those subjects that we talk. For example, Carrie gonna talk about voice OS, okay, which is pretty much voice OS is some kind of user interface, okay. So in that case, he will tell a story with respect to, main part of operating system that, nowadays you see a lot more on voice interface, okay. Any other question? Nope. Okay. All right, Carrie, let's get started.
And this is recording, right?
Yes, I have started.
Okay, cool. All right, my PowerPoint presentation is going to be about voice operating systems and how they have affected our world. And for our plan of attack, I will be doing an overview of what voice operating systems is, how it got started, what it looks like now, people who are in the business, the pros and cons, and then summarize at the end. So, try to think of the last sci-fi movie you've ever watched. These sci-fi movies distinguish themselves by having fantastical technology in them, and a very common theme with these movies is having robots, specifically ones that you can communicate with. So think, for example, HAL 9000 from 2001: A Space Odyssey, or the endearing Samantha from Her, and even the helpful Cortana AI from the video game Halo. These AI, they may have different personalities from each other, but they all have a common through line. People in those respective worlds are able to communicate with them via voice. They're able to talk to these robots, and the robots are able to understand them perfectly and have fluid conversations with them. This seems like a perfect subject to have for your science fiction movie. However, we're getting closer to the science aspect of that than you might think. So, voice operating systems is the ability to be able to interact verbally with your computer. And when I say computer, I mean any kind of device, whether it's as small as a phone in your pocket or as big as the car that you drive. Anything that has a computer and that you can speak to and give commands. And in order to develop a proper voice user interface, you need to have a solid understanding of computer science, language, and the psychology of humans. And by that I mean, what kind of tasks will the device perform? Who is going to use this device? Will other people have need of it? What kind of commands will these people be asking for? There are a lot of things that you need to take into account when it comes to good voice user interface. And voice user interface has actually been around a lot longer than you might think. It actually started as early as 1784 when Wolfgang von Kempelen created the acoustic mechanical speech machine in Vienna. And in 1879, Thomas Edison dabbled with the idea of the first dictation machine. But things didn't really get started until 1952. And if you pay close attention, you might start to realize that voice user interface has a pretty common connection when it comes to the growth of a human child, starting with the first baby steps. In 1952, Bell Laboratories introduced the Audrey system. It had the ability to be able to take and dictates all digits from 0 to 9. But that was just the beginning. Those were its first numbers. By 1962, IBM introduced the shoebox, and we started getting to its first words, about 16 words. And it had, up to this point, these devices had about a 90% accuracy rate, which sounds pretty good on paper. But then you also need to take into account the fact that this is only whenever their creators were speaking, and whenever other people started speaking, the accuracy rate went down to 70 and 80%. And of course, then you also got the Harpy from Carnegie Mellon University. These were just the first steps, and much like a baby, they were learning their first words. And up to 1971, we got up to about 1,000 words, but there's still so much more that can be done.
Yeah, by the way, coincidentally, Bell Labs, I used to work for Bell Labs, which is part of AT&T, long time ago.
So by this point, we started to reach the teens, but we would also begin to stagnate a little bit, and I'll get more into that soon, but it's growing at a rapid pace. So by 1997, Dragon Naturally Speaking was created, and it was very important to the speech recognition system because up to this point, you had to talk like that because it was the only way for AI to be able to actually understand what you were saying. So the point of Dragon Naturally Speaking was to let you, well, speak naturally, which is something that we kind of take for granted a bit nowadays. And in 1996, an even more important contribution was created. Introducing Val. Val was created by Bell South, and he can kind of be considered the grandfather of all these voiceover personalities that we have, such as Siri and Alexa. And it all started with Val, and he paved the way for future AI. But like I said, things would begin to stagnate a bit. At this point, the technology was still kind of bare, and there wasn't a whole lot of places to go up until we got to Apple. And that's when things started to get really crazy because cloud computing was introduced. With the advent of cloud computing, the amount of data and technology that was at the fingertips of companies went through the roof. And so the dictionary of what these AI were able to understand and the types of commands they were able to do went through the roof as well. And so this is when a bunch of different companies realized, hey, I think I can get into voiceover too. And this is where the competition starts. In this corner, you have Alexa being introduced by Amazon. And the other one, you have Google Assistant being introduced by Google. And of course, Apple is introducing their new AI, Siri, and Microsoft, who of course has their AI being named Cortana, as a loving tribute to their own video game Halo, which I think is a really nice touch. But they all have their own advantages, such as Amazon and Google being able to integrate their AI seamlessly into all their third-party products. But you have Apple, who probably did the best job integrating Siri into their first-party products. And Microsoft is more so dipping their toe into the ring, but they're still a valuable contender nonetheless. So at this point, smartphones are normally what people would think of when it comes to these personalities. But VUI is starting to be integrated more into our own living rooms with technology such as fridges or even a toaster. So here's what I love about voice user interface. Because humans are a lot more used to speaking than typing. Really think about it. The average human is able to speak up to 250 words a minute, but they're only able to type a measly 80 to 90 words. And so being able to speak your commands to an AI seems like the perfect way to get more commands out. And it feels a lot more natural. and the error rate of digital assistants is only under 5%. So, and like I said earlier, right now, most people are used to having AI in their phones, but with all these home speakers such as Alexa and Siri, it's starting to, you can think of it as a Trojan horse strategy. What I mean by that is companies are cleverly trying to find ways to get voice over into our homes, getting the general public more used to the idea of having a robot and being able to talk to them. Because at first it sounds a little crazy, but thanks to the personalities of Alexa and Siri, people are starting to become more comfortable with the idea. And of course, thanks to all of these companies and their different products, the integration is becoming much more affordable and simple. And so it doesn't really seem like there's any reason to not get voice user interface. But with any technology, there are still a few drawbacks. It's not the most intuitive in the world. People still need to have a bit of a learning curve when they first get into it. They might not know all the commands that they're able to do, and it can seem a bit scary at first, especially when you get in your car and you don't know what you're doing. And transcription is still far from clear cut. I said earlier that the error rate is about under 5%, but the error rate is still there, and it's something that needs to be taken into account. And while assistants are really good for singular tasks, such as making a schedule for you or looking something up online, they're still not quite there yet for conversational dialogue, which may or may not be a good thing depending on your perspective when it comes to AI improving, but that's a discussion for another day. There are also many factors that programmers need to take into account, which makes voice user interface very, very complicated. You have to think about things like dialect or what language people speak or the culture that they come from and what they're going to be asking. So it makes voice user interface very complicated, but it is worth it, I guarantee you. While voice recognition has made tremendous strides, but this is just the beginning of a new age. Apps are still finding ways to support multiple languages and being able to work in noisy environments and adapt to dialects. But there's still so many things to improve upon, and the AI themselves are getting a makeover. And they're finding new ways to get personalities like Alexa and Siri to sound more natural and lifelike, because having an assistant who's there to help you out is kind of a lot of people's dreams. So if you're able to have a robot do that, that just seems perfect on paper, because a robot will do whatever you say. Until, of course, it's a robot uprising. But again, story for another day. And so, to summarize, VoiceOS has come a very long way. It will continue to grow. And if you think about it, it's kind of like a human when it has the first baby steps. In 1952, learning its first numbers and first words. Then you have the teen years. It's finally starting to have a bit more of a natural sound and speaking, until now in the adulthood, where it has a defined personality and is even a bit sassy at times. But there's still plenty to go from there, gaining more wisdom and knowledge throughout the years. Everyone from Google to Amazon and Apple, they're all trying their hand at this tech, which I think is great, because competition, it breeds and commence and makes people exude creativity and wanting to improve, which is perfect for making the technology improve, because they're constantly trying to one up each other, and I love that. So even though there's still ways to go, I have no doubt that the future is looking bright for voice-over systems. All we have to do is make our voices heard. Thank you.
Anyone has any question? I have a few questions or comments. So I'll let everyone to go first. Anyone? Any takers? Maybe I should motivate, maybe next time I should figure it out, getting perhaps, new iPhone or iWatch for people who ask questions. But anyhow, Carrick, this is good presentation. I like it, okay? But let me ask you, you may already say something, along the whole presentation, because I think the class, I think we are more like technologists. We are more gravitate technology. what are important technologies or you know, like tools or anything that would help uh, voice over or whatever it is, voice UI to be more successful? What are subject or tools or aspect? You know, I think you mentioned something there, but I think I know. I just want you to summarize so that
Right.
all of us can hear it again. You know, because it's hidden here and there when you talk. Okay, go ahead, Karen.
Well, what's important to know when making good voice user interface is not only do you need to be able to have a strong understanding of computer science and being able to manage different tasks all at the same time, as well as having a connection to the cloud so that you are able to understand a wide volume of words from the dictionary and being able to look up things online. But there's also that linguistic aspect there as well. You need to be able to understand a wide array of different languages and cultures and what people are going to say. And it's important to have all that programmed there. So there's a lot of task management and memory management involved, as well as the cloud computing and linguistics.
Yeah. Okay. So I think let me repeat. I think I think your answer is right, but then to be more specific, when you talk about cloud, in fact, I mean, is computing power. I think you need, because AI require, the reason why AI came back. If you come to my office, you will see I have a bunch of book of AI that I bought 30 years ago. So I took AI 30 years ago, and AI almost went dead. You know, I mean, it's still going along, but as you said that, you know, it kind of quietly, because of computing power is not as powerful and cheaply just like today. You know, and the GPU, the cluster of you know, like all those GPU or the node, like we call computing cluster, it enable an AI application to be more effective, because otherwise there are a lot of tasks in the past that computing power is not enough. In a way, just like I think Carrick tried to mimic the way he whatever robotic kind of speak. You know, like it doesn't sound like human because of computing power is not there. So the point that I'm trying to say is that AI technology still need to be improved further, and computing should be even cheaper, because, you know, I think in the future, if you can make mobile set or your smartphone that fast enough, I mean, to process, you know, either this voice or text or speech or video or something without sending over the network. Because if you talk about cloud computing, it requires network to transmit the data, and then those data get processed at the server or in the cloud. But what if, you know, I mean, if you can make some sort of good technique, good hardware that, you know, your mobile would be more powerful, then in that case you can, you know, I mean, alleviate the workload and also reduce network traffic, so that, you know, I mean, all the data, AI data has not to be trained on the cloud, you know. So I think that one aspect. And then another important aspect that Carrick mentioned, linguistic aspect. You know, I think right now, I think even though you get 95% accuracy, it can easily map the command into computer command, because computer command, you have a finite set of those commands, so it's not that difficult. Okay, but then if you speak like, you know, I mean, human, just like I'm speaking. In fact, right now, I believe that my Alexa would understand my accent better than you guys, because of, you know, I use Alexa every day. I tell Alexa to turn on, turn off my light, open my door, down or up temperature in my house. So it gets trained every day. It start recognized. Okay, so linguistic aspect, I think, is quite important. And then, you know, I mean, with computing power, with the deep learning, the machine learning that start learn using convolution network or reinforced whatever, I mean, network or GAN network or whatnot. Okay, and last but not least, I think one of the challenge, because we take it for granted, I think we all like now English speaking, But then if you're coming from other countries, especially country that they mix between two languages, you know, some of the grammatic rules or those aspects become more difficult. So I think, in fact, when I went back to Thailand 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I start a graduate college in data science, which have this AI. And we try to hire one guy from MIT that his PhD in NPL, or natural language processing. And I think his dissertation attempt to do this AI voice recognition for, mix between the background of cultural and different language as well, So I think, any question? Let me just give you a big hand claps, okay?
Thank you.
Any question, guys? No? All right, I think so. Next would be Jack, okay? I think this is a, coincidentally, I think it probably would, the topic is complementing so well, because Jack gonna talk about the AI role, but then I think he talked about AI role in OS, okay? So go ahead, Jack.
Right. All right. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
All
All
right,
right.
Ted.
All right. I guess, do I need to put on my webcam? Here we go. Do y'all see me now?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Awesome. 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 So I am doing, AIs and operating systems. And then at the end, I'm going to talk about some of the predictions that, personal predictions I have and what the growth is going to be. And so let's kind of start off with, how do AIs really operate in an operating system? And so it manages computer software, hardware, and provides just common services for the computer, using its intelligence by a computer or machine in order to solve complex problems with ease. And so some of these complex problems can be data management, software management, and just kind of all sorts of stuff. And so some of the different types of AIs and OSs are intelligent system, expert system, natural language process, artificial neural networks, and fuzzy logic systems. And I'll be going into the more specifics in the next few slides. And kind of starting off with the intelligent systems, it supports decision-making and problem-solving. And so an example of this is choosing the best application to use for the user. So in time, the AI kind of picks up what you learn, which is the best software to use for texting. And so if you want, to write something out, it'll pull up, Word document or Microsoft Word, because that's what you usually pull up. And so on top of that, an expert system is the same thing, but it mimics a human expert. And so it gives them advanced information. For example, it will provide solutions such as memory management when there are crashes in the operating system. And so this can be really useful if you don't know, if you're not a computer science major, you have no idea, and you broke the home desktop to computer and you got to get your dad going. No, the operating system provides you a solution, just a lot easier and more convenient. And so going to the natural language process. And so this is kind of what the last presentation was kind of about. It picks up on English language, and it takes inputs and outputs as speech and written text. And so kind of an example like this would be like Siri or Cortana or all that whole good stuff and everything. And kind of another somewhat similar example of this is an artificial neural network, or that's a different type. And so it deals with pattern recognition. So this can be pattern recognition through an iPhone 10 or Windows Hello, where you can see, it reads your face, recognizes who you are, and lets you into the computer. And so,
just kind of quickly add to your last aspect. I think that is more the current term or technology term. I think they refer to deep learning. If you guys have not heard about that, I think you guys you should put those on your radar, because before you graduate, I would suggest you to look into more machine learning or deep learning. And what Jack mentioned about artificial neural network, I think more specifically, the hot topic is deep learning, which I mentioned about CNN, convolution network, reinforced network, the GAN, different other stuff. Yeah, go ahead, Jack. Sorry to interrupt. Just want to add.
You're all good. You're all good. It's cool. And so fuzzy logic systems, personally, this is my favorite one because I think it's the most interesting. But a fuzzy logic system receives ambiguous, distorted, or inaccurate input from the user, but has a defined output. And so it kind of imitates the way of decision making of a human. Kind of think about, it's your senior year of high school. You already know what college you're going to, Louisiana Tech, obviously. That's an easy choice. But you're trying to figure out which major you want to. And like, you're kind of very ambiguous of, oh, I want to be mathematics. You put these very ambiguous inputs, and then, in a way, you'll get the specific output. And so what's really cool about the fuzzy logic system is that it allows the user to be more flexible with his or her inputs. And so that's kind of an example of like how it could work that way. And so I know I'm kind of flying through this pretty quickly, but I'll touch back. And some advantages is helping human beings in many fields, such as academic, defense, and medical and research. Like, for example, right now we're needing of machines in the meat industry because of the coronavirus. A lot of people are becoming sick in the meat industry, and we're not able to produce as much meat. And so if we had, more machines in those industries, we would be able to, machines don't really get sick. So we'll be able to make more meat and package them up so we don't have a short supply of them. And so some other advantages are modifying the system, just easy and quick. It reduces time of operation, improvises memory management, and just better for security overall. It's just great advantages for AIs. But on the other hand, some issues are, since AIs can handle some of the sensitive information in languages, are like there is a fear that it might take over professions, as you see in history, with the McDonald's kiosk situations. As we saw, I think it was, I want to say 5 years ago, McDonald's in America started putting kiosks in the restaurant, and you see like cashiers and unemployment in McDonald's go rapidly down. And so it's just this constant fear that, AIs are going to take over the world, because of unemployment. And now I'll touch back on that again and kind of continue on, future legal issues. And so what I mean by that is, if you see on the like left-hand corner, I don't know if y'all see my mouse or anything, but I'm kind of, I'm going around like in a nutshell. And so that's a YouTube channel, and this is like their video. And it kind of goes into depth of, AIs are really smart. Are they going to go into a point where they can start feeling like real human beings? And so if they can feel this pleasure, this pain, and, feel hate or whatnot, are they going to have the same rights as human beings? And so that's kind of up for debate and up for topic. I highly recommend like watching that video. Great video and everything. Great channel. And so kind of what our current progress right now. So we're making other different types of AOSs, such as NeuroOS. And so it's an artificial network-based OS, just pattern learning recognition, working with memory, thinking and behavior. And then there's also cognition, which helps with the intelligent assistant with electric advisory, offer engines, and chatbots. And some examples of these two can be through Alexa, Siri, Google Now, Microsoft Corona, Windows Metro. And as you see, and throughout this like whole like last decade, you see AIs go through a rapid pace. They're rapidly changing. Like looking back at the last presentation, you saw how that rapid change was with the speech. And so kind of the proof of this is that, the top left is kind of a joke, but you see like a robot being a CAPTCHA, I am not a robot picture. And then on the right, I have over here, so I've been binge watching extreme couponing. And I came over this episode where there's this grandmother that like, she struggled with, she's getting really old, she's struggling with extreme couponing. So her son made this AI machine that organized all the coupons for her. And so it would like lay them out for like that day, and then she would just pick them up and go. And so it's just like, I highly recommend watching extreme couponing. It like, you'll really good show. And then finally, but least, like Mark Rober, I don't know if y'all heard of him, but he's a NASA engineer, and he made this AI, well, him and his buddy made this AI machine learning app. And so in baseball, they steal bases. And so what they did was they made an app to where it would scan the coach, and it would show you, what is the sign for steal. And it would tell you if it would steal or what they would not steal, or if it was a fake or not fake. And it's just really cool. And I highly recommend watching that video if you do have a chance. And so some of the personal predictions is that will AIs have an increase in unemployment? I beg to differ, no, because as you see through the coronavirus, in Michigan specifically, you see people that are rioting because they're not, they're not working as much, they're not getting as paid as much. And then if we go down this AI that's, more unemployment's going to go up, there's eventually going to be riots. And I don't think we're going to get to that point. And then will the future be like Detroit Become Human? Detroit Become Human is kind of like what I was saying with the last video. It's about these robots that have these human feelings. And like, do they have the same rights? I'm kind of indifferent about that. I hope not, so we don't have to deal with the legal issues personally, but who knows? And then will AIs control the globe? No, because the world's flat, obviously, but but personally, jokes aside, human beings are like too egoistic, and we want a lot of power in our lives, and for machines to have control over us and for them to like rule over us is just an unethical thought in our minds. And personally, I don't want machines, controlling us. And I don't think we'll get to that point, hopefully. And so these are my references. Are there any questions?
Any question for Jack?
So, Christy, do you want to go first?
Yeah, go ahead, Carrick.
Well, Jack, so first of all, I didn't know that Microsoft had a AI system named Corona.
Oh, Cortana.
You spelled it right. You accidentally said Corona.
Yeah, I was kind of going through it pretty quickly.
That's fine. But my question is, when did scientists first start looking into AI?
I want to say the 1960s. I didn't really research that type of part. I didn't really research the history type of part of it. I just researched like the different types as you see, and I just researched like the advantages and issues that we have right now in our current progress. So I didn't really go in depth into about that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think just not question, but just like quick comments along the line that, I think Jack already mentioned whether, the AI will conquer the world and all those, because I'm travel quite a bit. And then when I get to on to like Uber or Lyft, and then we start talking because all those drivers, they like to talk. And then once they know that I'm professor in computer science, then a lot of time, the questions such as like, would AI would, take away all people job or whether, it's going to conquer the world. It's always come up during those conversations, and I always say no, because understand how AI work. I think it's going to take, I'm not sure even my lifetime, machine will feel or not. At some point, I think it's going to be more and more accuracy, just like, understand human language. But I don't think that it's gonna be just replacing human and become whatever like thing in the movie there, So if there's no question, I would like to move on to the next one. Anyone has any other question? Going once, going twice. All right, good job, Jack. Okay, so I give some hands. Next, who is next?
Yes, Bryce.
Mm-hmm. Coolants on Gamebox OS. Is Coolants here? Yes. I think he is logging on. Okay, all right, go ahead, Coolant, when you're ready.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
All right, cool. Y'all see my screen too?
Yes.
All right, sweet. Okay, so today I'm going to be talking about console operating systems, like mainly operating systems on the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4. So the PlayStation 4 versus Xbox One. PlayStation is owned by Sony and Xbox is owned by Microsoft, respectively. And they're the two big competitors in the gaming industry. They use very different operating systems for their consoles, as you're going to see in these next few slides. The Xbox operating systems, the the Xbox One is simultaneously actually running 3 different operating systems, 1 host and 2 shared partitions. The host OS is Nanovisor, and one of the shared partitions is a custom virtual machine that's made basically for like running the games on the console, and the other partition is a custom virtual machine for running multiple apps and stuff, like just those smaller things. And so Microsoft obviously is the creator of Windows, and Windows is the most popular operating system for desktop computers and laptops. There's around 400 million active users of Windows 10. And since Xbox is also owned by Microsoft, there are, of course, going to be many similarities in Xbox's operating systems when compared to the Windows operating system. So when comparing Xbox One and Windows, the shared partition for running multiple apps, that virtual machine is it actually contains the Windows 8 core, or contained the Windows 8 core at launch. It has actually updated to the Windows 10 core later on in the lifespan of the Xbox One. And this operating system is visually and code indistinguishable from Windows 8. Here's a little comparison between the two UIs too. This is interesting to me, how they're like actually very similar. You can see the left side is the Windows 10 start screen, and the right side is just the home screen of the Xbox One. And you can see they have very many like color schemes and just the square design and all that. The more sleek background is shared similarities between the two of them. So Nanovisor, which is the host operating system for the Xbox One, it's a heavily modified version of Hyper-V Hypervisor. Hypervisors are softwares that virtual machines basically can run on. The version of Hyper-V brings the other 2 partitions together and manages their resources separately, basically, which makes it to where that if the apps machine crashes, it won't affect the games machine, and vice versa. So it's pretty like resourceful for, making sure the games run smoothly, or like everything runs smoothly on the Xbox. So now to the PlayStation. So as opposed to Xbox One, PlayStation 4 only runs one operating system, and this operating system is known as Orbis OS. And Orbis OS is a modified version of FreeBSD. So FreeBSD is a Unix-based open source operating system, and it's descended from Berkeley software distribution, and which is a series of Unix variants. The goal of FreeBSD project is to provide a stable and fast general purpose operating system that may be used for any purpose without strings attached. There are actually a lot of other companies that use that are based on FreeBSD, and those include Netflix, the Nintendo Switch, and Juniper Networks JunoOS. So why didn't PlayStation use Linux? So I found this interesting when I was doing research. I found that the PlayStation 2 actually used a version of Red Hat Linux. So then I was curious as to why they switched. And so doing further research, I found that whenever they made the PlayStation 3, at a certain point, they decided to completely switch over from Red Hat Linux to FreeBSD. And when Sony released the PlayStation 3 Slim, they added an update that removed Linux support entirely from the original consoles. And this removal was stated to be due to security concerns in PS3 firmware 3.21. And of course, this update made a lot of people mad because a lot of people like to use Linux on PlayStation and thought that this was like a violation of their rights and was unfair and deceptive, and caused a lot of people to claim lawsuits and different things against Sony. And that's my presentation. All right. Any questions?
Collins, please add please update your PowerPoint and then add the references, like 5 references at the end of your PowerPoint. Okay.
Yeah, I got you. I can do that.
Because I would make all these presentation available for everyone, so that even though some of you guys already submit that references, separately, I think it's probably easier to put both into one document. So in case that if some of us would like to look further into more detail, then they can follow your references, you know. And quick thing or quick comment may not be question, because this is open my eyes too. Whatever Colin has talk about, you know, Colin, let's go back to that nano visor and hypervisor kind of slides, you know. I understand all this technology. In fact, you know, I think it's used a hypervisor is not a virtual machine, but another term of hypervisor is called virtual VMM, or virtual machine monitor. You can think about it as an operating system of virtual machine. It control, it help to spin up, you know, virtual machine. Okay, so I have not looked into the detail of Xbox architecture, and it's opened my eyes that, but it does not surprise me. You know, I think it's opened my eyes that I know that some of these game machine has very capable hardware, and I think they have built a separate multiple virtual machine on those box, so that I mean probably that development, the reliability aspect, the stability, you know, I think it would vastly improve, because if you have separate virtual machine and then you have different component running on different virtual machine, or different virtual either the same underlying OS or different OS, because I think Colin also mentioned that it probably use some sort of some similar kind of code from Windows 10 or something like that, because the user interface look kind of similar. And I would say no surprise that, you know, I think if Xbox, in fact, the code, the OS that run underneath is common code to those Windows kind of things, you know. So I hope you guys, when you guys listen to Cullen, you follow, I mean, his presentation or all these presentation, and then you're gonna start see connection to what you learn, I mean, from the class. And then last but not least, on PlayStation box, you know, also 15 years ago, I wrote proposal to whatever it is, to university, you know, they have a student fee kind of funding, and they get $25,000 during that time. I bought around 20 something PlayStation 3, which is completely came out during that time, just came out. And we replaced the original OS. I don't know, and I don't know whether it's Orbis OS or not, with Yellow Dog Linux, okay? And then makes dual boot between the regular PlayStation OS and Yellow Dog Linux, so that you can use as a general purpose computer. So it pop up, you know, like KDE or those multiple window, and then you can log in and then do programming, as well as we cluster those 25 PlayStation 3 as a supercomputer or cluster, you know. But I didn't realize about the switching from previously Linux into FreeBSD. But I guess that for programmer point of view, it's not a whole lot of change, because FreeBSD Linux is also based on Unix kind of kernel. So in that case, you know, in terms of user interface, programming interface, API, and as well as, you know, system call, I believe that I think it looks similar. Maybe people complain or suing Sony because they thought that they have some right that, you know, they can do anything with the machine. Does it make sense, you guys? Does it make sense, Colin? My comments.
Oh yeah.
All right.
Really, very interesting comments.
Yeah. Anyone has any question or any comment to Colin's?
Yeah, I actually found it. Are you guys able to hear me?
Yes,
Yeah, I
yes.
can hear you.
Okay, I just didn't see my thing lining up. But yeah, I found it interesting. I didn't know that the Xbox One was actually just straight up a modified version of the Windows operating system. I found that interesting, as well as the fact that I had heard about the whole PlayStation Linux thing. I remember hearing about that, but I didn't know that there were people who actually went after for that. So I found
Yeah.
that interesting.
I think it makes sense, Jack, because I see all these, either you run Linux or FreeBSD or all those, I would say is doable in terms of porting one OS to this platform, because two aspects. I believe that, there's a version of Intel or x86 architecture or the hardware architecture that running FreeBSD, Linux, and Windows. So therefore, you can, easily port some of those. It may not be the whole kernel, but maybe it's important subsystem that they can port to this Xbox machine or even PlayStation machine. Okay. So, and then second aspect, if straight whatever this OS running on that hardware, if it does not work, then also you can use another route by create virtual machine, which there are, I think some of us probably would present on virtualization or virtual machine. And some of the virtual machine techniques, even though the hardware, you don't have compatibility, there are some emulators or emulation kind of techniques that would map the machine code from whatever the target operating system into underlying, hardware machine code. So I think they're all doable. At least for me, as a whatever the people who are in this operating system for the past 30 years, I see that if I have the team, I have money, someone pay me a couple $1,000,000, I probably could lead the team and put anything into whatever those games block machine. All right. Okay. So good. Collins. Okay. This is another aspect that. Any other question, Chris?
Yeah, I have one. Like, the reason that people got mad about Sony switching over from Linux is because when they were under that Linux system, their console was easy to manipulate and it was easy to code. It's like switching from an Android to an iPhone. It was easier to manipulate the code while I was in Linux. But then they said, okay, since y'all want to cheat in our games, since y'all want to mess up our system, we're gonna create our own operating system separate from all of the other ones. So then y'all have a harder time decrypting our code in order to decrypting our code just to corrupt our game and our players. So we're going to create our own operating system that's different between Windows, Linux, and Mac. So it's like a whole separate operating system, and they just call it a PlayStation 4. That's why they call it a PlayStation 4, because the system is it's like I think it's 4 layers deep when it comes to security, and it's a unique operating system, more or less.
Okay.
It's interesting stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Good comment. Okay. Thanks for the comments. Okay. Any other comments or question before we move to the next presentation?
Yeah, Colin, I want to know which company do you think is doing the best in the console business?
Well, I have my own Xbox. I used to play that, but I built a PC last summer, so I haven't been playing it recently. But from what I can tell, it looks like PlayStation's kind of winning the race at the moment. But
Right answer.
yeah, I'm not biased on that though. I think it's all fair game.
Okay. All right. So let's move on. Let's take more questions offline, and so then we can get to the next person. Is David here? David Amort. Let's see whether David is here. I have not seen him log in this morning because next supposed to be David. Okay. Why don't we do move to the next person? I think beside David is Matt. Matt Alvidres. Is Matt here?
What number are we at right now for the presentation?
I think we number 2. Collins is number 2. The next is number 3 is David Amort. Is
Okay.
David here? If
No,
not,
no, this is Matthew.
okay, Matt, go ahead, Matt. Matt is memory management, right? Yes, okay.
Yes.
Go ahead, Matt.
Okay, so my topic is memory management, and to go over a brief outline, I'm going to be going over what memory management is, pros, cons, different types of memory management, and then my conclusion and resources. So what is memory management? Memory management is the process of controlling and coordinating a computer system's memory. It also assigns portions known as blocks to various running programs to optimize the overall system performance. It helps keep track of all used and unused memory that that your computer is using. Now, some memory management pros are when your computer is running at max efficiency, there will be little to no lag time processes or little to no lag time in the processes that you are using. So essentially, like when you're opening programs or closing lots of stuff, you won't have to worry about like lag times and like opening them and such. It helps keep your system stable and perform better. So on just general everyday apps that you use, so even on your phone, it'll help keep running all your different apps or programs better. It'll help let you execute multiple processes because I know a lot of time when people use computers, they tend to have multiple things open, such as tabs on a browser or different apps that they are using to when they're doing homework or anything, especially now because if you don't have a good memory management, you won't be able to do that as effectively. It helps utilize memory space by sharing memory among different processes as well. Some different cons of memory management is when your management is not going so good, the processes can slow, as I said earlier, resulting in lag time. So you won't be able to run stuff efficiently anymore. You also won't be able to run multiple tasks at a time. So you will have to like open and close stuff, open and close stuff, open and close stuff, open and close stuff constantly. If the memory is not also being managed properly, it can also help lead to filling up your system memory, thus you losing space on your hard drives or anything that you might be storing stuff on, and you won't be able to add more stuff, and you'll have to essentially reorganize it yourself, and it'll just take a lot longer to do that. Now, some different types of memory management I'm going to be going over are linked lists, bit mapping, paging, segmentation, and virtual memory. Now, linked lists help keep track of all memory locations that are stored based on address they are put in, and using linked lists makes processes such as swapping in memory a lot better and easier to manage. Bit mapping keeps a bitmap of where each bit corresponds to a block of memory. A bit sets a 0 to represent a free memory block, so that means memory is free and can be used there. And it sets a 1 to represent memory that is being used, so that memory is not available there. Memory paging. Memory paging allows memory allocation to be stored non-contiguously, which means it will store it together, but in segments or blocks. Some different types of paging is physical and logical addresses. The physical address is the actual frame of the address and of the memory which is stored. So it's like your physical memory, or essentially like your own basic hard drives. Logical address is generated directly by the CPUs. Memory paging also helps implementing memory into virtual memory. Memory segmentation is a technique of dividing up memory into segments and allocated them. The segments are stored into a segment table, which can also be stored into other segment tables. So essentially, it's like setting a folder into a folder. So you could have multiple of those, and it helps keep everything organized. You can also think of this, yeah, that's what I just said. Now, virtual memory. Virtual memory is a storage allocation theme where a secondary storage is used to access main memory. it uses both hardware and software. The storage is limited in virtual, but it allows you to access it and store it later and transfer it, and implemented using demand paging and demand segmentation. And virtual memory is essentially just free memory used up online, such as like Dropbox and stuff. And you can transfer stuff there and transfer stuff back to your own hard drive disk. And overall memory management is needed for all processes in your computer. It helps keep your computer running efficiently and helps it from lagging when you are doing stuff, and it helps your computer run multiple processes at a time, and to help run more faster than it would without the memory management being run efficiently. And here's my resources.
Right. So it's just a quick comment, and then we can move on to the next presentation. So I think what Matt covered, I think, is kind of emphasize or review what we cover in the class. But one thing that I like to mention for virtual memory and the Dropbox is two separate things. Dropbox is not virtual memory. Virtual memory is a mechanism within operating system that map the pages that not being used or segment not being used into secondary storage, so that it create a illusion of large memory space. It's not a storage, it's a memory space that let's think about, if you don't use a certain page, then it move it out so that it will free up the actual physical memory, so that other application we can allocate those process memory there. Okay, so the Dropbox is used more network file system or storage file system that you can store your file, it appear like your local file, but then it could be sync up or replicate to whatever the network storage. Okay, so all right, so next presentation is Tim. Is Tim here?
Hello.
Yes.
All right. Share screen. You guys see this? Maybe.
Yes, go to the first page, right? You are at the resource page.
Yeah.
Okay.
There we go.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So my presentation is for the operating systems for the Internet of Things. So first, a little bit of background. The first thing was made in 1990 and was called the Internet Toaster. It was basically just a just a toaster that's connected to the internet to automate the making of toast, obviously. Then a year later, a small robotic arm was attached to it that let it pick up and place bread into the toaster, making the automation process faster. And then 10 years later, the LG announced plans for its first refrigerator to be ever connected to the internet, which was, I'm pretty sure, just basically called the internet. I was like the internet fridge or something like that. It was basically a really simple name. So, what is the IoT? The IoT stands for the Internet of Things. The Internet of Things is the connection of everyday objects to the internet by computer devices so that they can send and receive data, like information, different like times, data, information that's like important for computers and people to know. It is mainly used for the automation of everyday life to just make things easier for the person using it, to make it nice and simple enough to where it's easier just user wise and computer wise. The current state of the Internet of Things is that there are currently 30 billion IoT devices connected worldwide. IoT devices are widely sold commercially. Like many are main hub AI controlled devices, like we've seen before, the Google Home, the Alexa, Cortana, all of these types of AIs that are voice activated and things like that. There are many, and then there are also many basic things such as lights, thermostats, and appliances that are becoming compatible, and if not, they're already made with IoT connection, like the Nest home system, the like other things like the thermostats and things like that. Many can be controlled from the palm of our hand with the use of phone apps or like different types of remotes, or with no hands at all, like the home systems that are just voice activated. So you can issue commands by voice and it'll follow your commands. So one of the OSs that are commonly used for Internet of Things is Riot OS. It is C to C++ programming based operating system. It has minimal hardware dependencies, so you can code with C and C++ with having very little commands that are only specific to that hardware, which is very nice because then you can transfer programs over pretty seamlessly. It runs on 8-bit, 16-bit, and 32-bit platforms, so it's widely available across all platforms. It has static and dynamic memory allocation, so it has like basically you can hold storage and it can also have a lot of like RAM and things like that. It has ultra low interrupt latency, which allows for real-time capability, so you don't have to wait for a command to happen. If you issue it, it'll be basically immediate. And it has the ability to use many different tools and utilities like coding wise and a bunch of different tools that just make it easier on the user to do things. Then there's the Fuchsia OS, which is an open source Zircon microkernel operating system from Google, which Zircon is like, because it's a different kernel completely. So it's not like Linux, it's not Mac, it's not Windows, like it's not a branch off of those. It's its own completely separate thing, which is pretty cool. So, and the Future OS has Flutter SDK, which lets developers make apps with any programming language, which I thought was really cool. It's a nice touch for Google to add. So like you can have any background and come into Fuchsia OS and be programming into it, which is pretty nice. Fuchsia OS has split screen capability across multiple apps for very easy multitasking. So you can be talking or texting on one app and then be looking up something on another app and watching something on another. Like if you're trying to do multiple things at once, it's very nice to do it. And then it has cross-device access by use of cloud storage. So you can be doing something on one device, you can be accessing something, and then say you wanted to go to a different room and you can't bring that device with you, you can just go to whatever device it is in your home and it'll pick up right where you left off on the other device, which is always just convenient and nice. So the benefits of having like one operating system for the Internet of Things, like if we were just make everything streamlined and have one operating system, like if you ever have an Internet of Thing device and you have one operating system, is that it would be easier to implement a home network of multiple devices connected to each other inside of one home, because like everything will have the same OS, so it'd be easier to configure things, it'd be easier to memorize things and have things work together nicely and smoothly. It would lead to much greater autonomy of everyday tasks and burdens because it will be easily done, so you don't have to wait for different OSs to conflict possibly or something like that. One change in the customization of the OS can be rebound to every device available. Because they all have the same thing, it'd be easily spread throughout. And it'd be easy to add, remove, and reconfigure different IoT devices. The detriments of having one operating system, though, would be customizations would be limited to the limits of the OS. So if you can only customize certain aspects of it, but you want to customize the other thing, then you can't exactly if you only have one. So then the resource allocation would differ and possibly suffer across different devices, which means that like it would either require having all similar complexity devices. Like I wouldn't say that a light is as complex as a thermostat. So like different, like if it was distributing resources, then it might, you wouldn't want to give a light like a lot of resources and then a thermostat not as much, and then which would lead to possibly wasting or not having enough resources. A different user might have trouble using your IoT devices if they're not used to the OS that you have, which I mean makes sense. And then some people just might not like the OS that is at like the one OS that the Internet of Things has. So, I mean, you can't really help that. That's just personal opinion. So, to summarize, the Internet of Things connects many of our everyday life devices together using the Internet. It creates autonomy across all devices, making the life of the user easier. There are many OSs like Riot and Fuchsia that are being developed for use in these devices to make the IoT process easier and more manageable. And each different OS has different benefits and fallbacks to each other, and which the users can choose what is best for their style of home network. And these are my sources, and that is it.
Any questions for Tim or Bryce? Hey Bryce, have you heard about IFTTT? IF and then 3Ts.
I don't think I have now.
I just type into the chat room, okay? And you guys are interested in this IoT, especially to create your own service or app. There is a protocol, API or tools called IFTTT, which is a lot of those devices that Alexa, I mean, you know that Alexa or Google Home Assistant use. I think it's also support IFTTT. And also some app like Twitter also support this API. So in fact, you can create the IoT, the device, you know, like for example, if your motion sensor or your camera detects someone there, and then you want to trigger the Spotify and play a certain music, you know, you can create some of those toy apps using IFTTT. So if someone are interested in this, I just type on this live chat, and then you can take a look at this one. You know, this is my personal interest because I think 25 years ago, I built the first home that, in fact, right around whatever the toaster that Bryce mentioned, you know, I mean, I create my first home that's automated. Before we have all this internet, we use a certain protocol called X10, if you guys heard about X10, okay? And then later on, I'm continue to develop my interest in this. In fact, I look into this LG or Samsung. I think both has this smart refrigerator that the early version, it just all having whatever that big tablet or panel on refrigerator, and then you can play Pandora or Twitter there, which I can see that, you know, I mean, it's just gimmick kind of, you know, feature is not no useful. I believe that, you know, later on they may develop more useful things. So, I mean, to all you guys, you know, I think if you guys are interested in some of these smart home or IoT type of application, specifically for your senior capstone, or if you have a special interest toward whatever the 499, which is individual study, I may be open to work with a few of you guys, you know. So any question for Bryce before we move to the next person? All right, okay, so let's give Bryce a hand, and then the next person would be, let me see, Stephen Baldwin in AI again. I think AI is quite popular topic. Is Stephen around?
Yeah, I'm right here.
Okay, go ahead, Stephen. Show your screen and start your presentation. If you guys, some of you guys would like to go and have some break, go ahead. I will continue on whatever this discussion, okay? Because we have just limited time. Yeah, go ahead, Steven.
All right. My name is Stephen Baldwin, and today I will also be talking about AI and OS, but it won't be the exact same as Jack's. You just left. I'll talk a bit more about history and my own personal opinions about AI. First, I'm pretty sure you all know AI is artificial intelligence. It basically means a computer that has some form of intelligence. It can be something like a CPU enemy in a video game, to Siri, as mentioned before, to even something like some very complex like IBM's Watson, which was a knowledge-based AI that used to do Jeopardy games a long time ago. Now here's a brief history lesson on artificial intelligence. It's been around for a long time, longer than we assume, because back then when computers just started to build, they couldn't remember any commands that they executed. That was the big problem. So eventually, like 1950, the first AI was made, something called logic theorists, which was made to mimic the problem-solving skills of a human. Now, it wasn't as advanced as AI is right now, but it was the first step into what AI has become today. And I'm going to show a graph that shows a bit more of the history of AI, more in depth, and I'll talk about it then. But it's gotten to the point where in 1997, like the big jump between this logic theorist and a program made by IBM called Deep Blue, which was a chess-playing computer program that defeated Grandmaster of Chess at the time, Garry Kasparov. And this made the papers. It was huge. It was the first time the robots defeated humans in something. Now, this graph is a timeline from, well, the starting of computing all the way to 2000. I couldn't find a graph that went further. But as you see here, AI has truly advanced since then, because again, oh, it was 1955, sorry. Yeah, logic theorists, first computer program was invented. And then like immediately afterwards, there was this giant council that was trying to find more points in artificial intelligence. In fact, that was when the term was coined. It ended up not working too well, but everyone agreed that this was something to look into. And you know, like how people current days predict that, you know, AI will soon surpass human minds? That's been around since the 60s. People have been saying that for a long time, that AI will think like humans, that AI will be smarter than humans. We haven't truly gotten there yet, even though Watson is practically smarter than all of us, but that's only because it's knowledgeable. And when you think about automated cars, to show like how much we've progressed, the first one was in 1986. It's probably not to the level of what Tesla's currently makes, but again, the seeds of AI started to grow, and then there was this huge boom. Now, describe what AI is right now. It's anywhere and everywhere. It's in answering machines. You know, sometimes you call up, sometimes you get a call, and you know the person on the other side is a robot. That's still an artificial intelligence. Siri, Watson, Amazon's Alexa, all those like smart homes. Every single one of those things is a form of artificial intelligence. And we need it in order to keep the computer running. Now, what's interesting is that we've yet to, now in OS, now what you would want an OS to do is something like multitask, recognize speech, maybe tell you a joke, recognize people, outsource, monitor and optimize performance. OS via artificial intelligence can already do all of this. The one thing we've yet to do, and I've yet to find any research on, so I don't know if this happened or not, but we've yet to actually make truly autonomous AI, as an AI that can think like a human, that can have emotions like a human. Well, this is going to be a little bit opinionated, but I think we should not have that for OS. Mainly because the question I posed at the bottom, do you really want an operating system to talk back to you? Like, say you're trying to program something in an operating system. Do you really want the computer to tell you what you're doing is wrong even before you executed it? Do you really want the program to make its own stuff to make it better? I mean, of course, like we've all seen the sci-fi movies with Terminator and HAL, and even something as simple as Her Like, those were all autonomous AI, and they eventually went against their code in some way, shape, or form and started doing their own thing. Whether it was Skynet, HAL doing what HAL did, or her living her own life. It feels like what we should do as programmers, as humans, is not reach that level yet so that we can actually still have a fully functioning OS. I mean, obviously, we can still make advancements in AI because, again, it can still be smarter and it can still make things run way more smoothly than it currently is. But as long as we don't reach autonomous AI, we shouldn't have a problem. Here are just some brief negatives of AI right now. First is AI bias. Now, of course, AIs are built off algorithms, and so there's a person who has to code the algorithm. There is a chance that that person could put his own prejudice and ideas into the AI. This would make a Twitter bot say something that they probably shouldn't say. This is just something that companies will have to look out for. Like, AI should be truly neutral. They shouldn't have any built-in prejudices in them. Next is a shift in human experience. When AI does a lot more jobs and multitask, that gives us with a bit more free time. And I think, which is what we currently have because of, well, quarantine. And that can be a bad thing for some people. The amount of free time you don't know what to do with. I feel like all of us have been currently experiencing that, where we just don't know what to do with most of the time we've been given. Now, some can be productive with it. Others can go quite possible. Others can just not function well. They need something to be done. And so a shift in human experience when AI further develops is something key to look out for. Next is accelerating hacking. Basically, with AI running on automation all the time, it can make hacking easier and can make it difficult for us as humans, cybersecurity people, to even catch up to it. Because you're essentially going up against a program that's built to be perfect and won't make a mistake, and you have to catch on that before anything else. Here are some brief benefits of AI, because it's not all doom and gloom. One, again, if AI continues to go the way it's going, automation will be enhanced and jobs will be made easier. The example I can think of, as a friend of mine actually gave to me a while ago, is basically you need a surgery done, and it's like a serious surgery where you need like a truly steady hand. What you can do is have an AI program to do the surgery for you, and the doctor will still have his job, of course, recommends what you can do, what you can't do, and may even help. But you can still use an AI arm to do the surgery for you. And obviously, as mentioned before, very tedious task can be done through artificial intelligence, and it will give us more free time to focus on other things, like maybe some old personal stuff that you've been meaning to do for a while, or maybe some other more important things to worry about, like your job, like managing a company. Having AI perform other tedious tasks that you really don't want to deal with can help you in the can help you in your job. And what we've been seeing recently is smarter weather forecasting, because honestly, the weather is probably still one of the most unpredictable things in this world. AI is making it easier for us to predict. This is why you see rain percentages, because if I remember correctly what rain percentages were, it was the chances of rain meant the amount of times it has rained in similar conditions. I believe that's what it is. That's a huge step when it comes to forecasting. Some of my kind of personal predictions for AI, I do think that a lot of jobs will be made easier. I do agree with Jack where I don't think there will be a big loss of jobs. I do think that, we as humans still want to work. COVID's kind of proved that we want to work, we want to open, we want to make money and support our families. So I don't think AI and robots will truly just take over all of our jobs. Because again, there are just some jobs that are better suited for humans than AI. Like, I wouldn't expect current AI to run a city, essentially be mayor of a city. Well, I mean, they probably do it better than New Orleans mayor, but that's beside the point. But I do think that if we do give AI true human thought and human emotions, that can be extremely dangerous. And that's something that we have to look out for in the future. But as long as AI stays in the subservient role it's currently in, the future looks bright when it comes to computing, OS, and artificial intelligence. We'll make plenty of strides, and through the power of an intelligence we created, we may be able to explore the universe even more. And yeah, this is just kind of a brief summary about it. It's come a long way from its humble beginnings. Again, there's still pros and cons. It's not perfect. Nothing in this world is, not even the perfect robot. But the future is bright and scary because, again, we have to worry about making robots too smart. But as long as we don't do that, we'll make great strides in the field of science. And that's my presentation.
You have any reference, Stephen?
Do I have any what?
References.
I forgot to add that. Sorry, I'll add that later.
Yeah, add and send that to me. Okay.
Yeah, I'll add that later and send it to you.
Okay. Any question? Are you a paranoid type of person?
I'm more of kind of a worried person, I guess, to best explain it.
Yeah.
I take a look at the negatives of something and I kind of take those more in effect than the positives. But I do that a lot so that I won't hit those negatives and I can truly get the positives.
That's what you call Murphy's Law.
Yeah, Murphy's Law. I believe in Murphy's Law, essentially.
Because I can feel, I have a feel when I listen to you, you kind of little more concerned on the technology. And in fact, those negativity that you mentioned, they are from human, not from AI. Human that cheating. They put that program or algorithm to cheat people or to make something. I don't think that in our lifetime, the machine is going to be autonomous, can have a feeling. It would have certain kind of decision or knowledge, but then it's just based upon the rules or something that people use those events or those output to do something, to make some decision. I think it's all based on the creator, the developer of those systems. But I don't think that I think it would help in my, I mean, this is debatable because a lot of people feel like you yourself. I mean, you're not unique because as I told you, when I travel, people talk to me all the time and I like to talk to people and exchange some idea. And a lot of time when they know that I'm professor in computer science, all these questions, negativities all pop up. And then I had to educate them. I said, you know, for me, I would say that I know half AI very well. I don't know another half. The programming aspect, the model aspect that predicts something, I don't know. But then AI now become AI. I mean, I don't think you have the chart up until 2000. But in fact, the AI that take off, I mean, from the current stage is around 2013, 2015, start taking off because of computing is cheaper. All the GPU, cluster of GPU
Yeah.
is cheaper, and therefore AI more possible. But still, we have long way to go in order to get to that point, you know. And I don't see in my lifetime. In fact, I'm an expert in HPC or cloud or computation, so I know half very well. In fact, in January, I traveled to Ecuador and then met the guy from Seattle, work for Microsoft. And then we talked to each other. You know, Microsoft has this AI or do this AI. And then they knew that my expertise in HPC. And then he said, and told him that I'm gonna retire next year. He said, "Are you sure you can make $1 million now? You know, if you want to get into, you know, whatever this current hot topic." So anyway, I think this is interesting discussion. I always want to see both sides, which is I'm thanking you to you know, put forth some other aspect, you know, pros and cons. You know, this is then it make it lively discussion. You know. All right.
I guess I probably should have specified with the negatives and the positives. It's that it is still based on the person because AI only follows what the person puts. That's why I had AI bias there.
Yeah.
Because essentially kind of saying like, you know, the human can still make a mistake and it will cause the AI to still make a mistake. I mean, I agree with you. I'm just saying we shouldn't get there. I don't think we ever will. Essentially, I'm just saying we shouldn't.
Yes, yes, I totally agree. I do not totally. I mean, I don't disagree with you, but I kind of smile and laugh because it's like deja vu. It came back, you know, the same question, not just for you, you know, but then when I try. In fact, I have one guy almost unfriend me because of I was the dean pushing AI and they talk about the benefit of AI. And the guy say that, oh, it's gonna take all the jobs, you know, the job gonna disappear. And now he didn't talk to me because I just, you know, support the idea of AI and push AI technology when I was in Asia as a dean last year. And then making the guy that upset at me because I support AI, you know. So some people have strong opinion, you know. All right, guys. But I would say that, I mean, to every one of you guys, you should put your radar on, understand what is AI, how machine learning, and how, you know, AI would be beneficial. Because I see, I mean, we can't avoid. It's going to be part of our life, either directly or indirectly. You know, it's here now. The chatbot right now, when you go to get customer support, when you are chatting, you do with the chatbot. You talk to the chatbot, not the human. You know, so
robot. Everything's AI now.
Most of the thing, you know. All right, okay. So let's move on to the next person. Thank you, and send me the update with the reference.
All right.
The next person, who is the next person? Is Chris. Chris Evan. Is Chris here?
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, we do. All right, go ahead, share the screen, Chris.
All right. Let's share this screen. Okay, can y'all see my presentation? All right. So today I am going to be talking about the Microsoft HoloLens. So what is the Microsoft HoloLens? Well, the Microsoft HoloLens is an augmented and virtual reality headset, or you can call it a mixed reality headset, that is created by Microsoft to both create advancements in virtual reality as well as being a visual educational tool, which this is a bit different from other companies' headsets like Oculus and Vive, which I will talk about later. So, like I said, with the Microsoft HoloLens, it is to create educational programs of virtual reality. So other occupations like doctors, engineers, and scientists may experiment and observe without needing or using real-life material. So this basically means that they could do trial and error without having any of the negatives that would come from it. So this is not only limited to their occupations. However, on Microsoft's website, these are the occupations that they kind of strive to talk about. And the headsets function is obviously not prior to video games, though it does have some. So history on the Microsoft HoloLens, I was actually surprised to be informed that the Microsoft HoloLens can be traced back to the Xbox Kinect, which is an accessory that came out back when the Xbox 360 was around for a couple years. And Microsoft HoloLens came from that, from the Xbox Kinect, from trying to mimic a person's body, like tracing and such. So that was very interesting to me. However, a few years later, the first concept of the Microsoft HoloLens would be released in a Windows 10 event in January 21st, 2015. I did not see this event. However, I did see a week prior the E3 2015 convention, which is a gaming convention, and Mojang at the time had already been bought up by Microsoft, and they released the thing called the Minecraft HoloLens, which was going to be able to play Minecraft on an overhead 3D platform, kind of using the same headset that Microsoft HoloLens is now. However, that was immediately debunked and turned into a true Microsoft HoloLens just about a year later. So when the original version came out, the development edition, it came out on March 30th, 2016. And then the full released version would come out just almost 7 months later in the United States, certain countries in Europe, and in Australia. And then after just a few years, the Minecraft HoloLens 2 would become a concept and would be released for pre-order on February 24th, 2019. But they would first release the development edition for this headset as well, and then they would bring the full edition out just a little while later. This is the regular Minecraft HoloLens on the left, which was also the same for the development edition, and this is the Microsoft HoloLens on the right, and again, the development edition reflects what this one looks like. So the occupational purposes of the HoloLens. So like I described earlier with the specific occupations that Microsoft likes to discuss on their website, some specific occupations have bought into Microsoft HoloLens and have reflected and given feedback on what their purposes are used for. And so doctors will use this headset for applications that will help within their occupation, which is kind of like a teaching mechanism to help out with surgical operations, or being able to create videos that people would be able to see from a first-person perspective on how to properly work in operation rooms. Engineers will have applications that can help them build, create, observe, or run virtual hardware or software. So if it's kind of like it helps with OSHA laws, so you don't have to like stand close to an enormous piece of technology that might have to be shut down beforehand. So you can basically abide all that by just having the Microsoft HoloLens. And then scientists will use these applications to allow experiment and observe how some things will work over an extensive period of time. So scientists will basically use this for trial and error, which is one of my favorite things, obviously, because this basically means that all three of these occupations, with reliance on the Microsoft HoloLens, gives positive feedback to how this headset properly works. And there's other consumer occupations, but like I said, these are basically the main examples. Okay, so a common misconception about this with competitors, or quote-unquote competitors, is that this is a bit of a different headset compared to other companies like Google, Oculus, and Vive. Oculus and Vive have been out just a little while longer with their headsets than Microsoft, coming back in, I believe, around mid-2014. But both of these headsets, also being mixed reality, are prioritized as video gaming headsets. And also the first couple versions of both of these headsets were specifically computer accessories. They weren't standalone, unlike the Microsoft HoloLens or the Google Glass, which I'll talk about in a minute, or right now. But the newer products for both Oculus and Vive are not standalone. They have operating systems themselves, so they can kind of be more, I guess you would say, travel sized in some aspects. But the concept is kind of still the same with even their earlier versions. And then the Google Glass came out, and I didn't know a lot about the Google Glass. There was a lot of controversy about this that came out back in like 2013, I believe, when the Google Glass was first introduced. And it was supposed to be a smartphone on your face. However, when people used it, they were very disturbed because the AI functions and the just some of the applications that worked within it just did not seem to mix well with a natural consumer. So they have now turned the Google Glass into kind of a business type of accessory or product, kind of just like the Microsoft HoloLens is educational. So it's how you take it, how you leave it. To the left, from top to bottom, that's the original Oculus Rift, the first headset that came out for Oculus. Then this is the Oculus Go, and then the bottom one is the Oculus Quest, which Oculus Go and Oculus Quest are both standalone with their own operating system, while the regular Oculus is an accessory on the computer. For Vive in the center, the original HTC Vive and the HTC Vive Pro both have to rely on a computer in order for it to properly run, while the Oculus Cosmos or the Vive Cosmos at the bottom is a standalone with an operating system, and it's actually one of the most powerful headsets at the moment. And then you have Google Glass over here, which is the one that came out back in 2013. That was then shelved for a few years, but then the Google Glass just below it is kind of the recent one that's been worked on for the last couple years to knock out the kinks and modernize it so it would be able to run against its competitors. Okay, so there's two different HoloLens, basically. Not only with calling out the first and the second HoloLens, but each one has a development edition, which is what I stated earlier. So the development edition of the Microsoft HoloLens is what computer scientists and companies will buy to create programs that work via HoloLens schematics. So basically, both will have the same operating system, both will have the same features, and both will have the same applications. However, the development edition has less security and has a more prioritized building functions, so people who are wanting to put more applications on the Microsoft Store or kind of just try to get their own share of creating virtual applications will buy the development edition so then they can properly work on it, which I think is the cooler part of the headset. So basically people will buy these development editions so they can make programs, and then they'll turn around and they'll sell and manage these programs via the Microsoft Windows Mixed Reality Store, and then the full edition will then use these coded apps to basically be promoted, so then it gets more publicity and the cycle just continues. It's basically a cycle between the both. So what is the hardware and software components of the Microsoft HoloLens? So the HoloLens and HoloLens 2 have different hardware schematics, which the first one had, I believe it had 3 visible cameras, which would have had a center and 2, one on the left and one on the right, to kind of help with head tracking and visual tracking. However, this newer HoloLens 2 has 4 visible cameras, so will allow for better tracking. And other than that, I believe the audio is the exact same, and hand tracking and eye tracking have been the exact same. However, the original HoloLens had a transparent visor with high quality Technicolor visuals and spatial sound quality. I know that the sound quality is up a little bit from for the HoloLens 2, and also the translucent visor on the HoloLens 2 is for better Technicolor visuals. The development edition has the exact same hardware specs for both headsets. All 4 headsets run on C++ coding, as per most of Microsoft's products, and all 4 headsets run on a 64-bit Windows 10 operating system. It is literally a top-of-the-line computer on your head. Again, using the same pictures from earlier, the one on the left has the transparent visor. Oh, it does have, oh wait, I was wrong. The Microsoft HoloLens has 5 cameras. That's what I wrote down. However, the cameras are of less quality than the one on the right, which has 4. And you can't really see it from the transparent. If you squint, there's one right here, and there's like one right about here. Okay, so the lack of public information. There's not a lot known about the Microsoft HoloLens virtual reality headsets. I took forever to try to find this. I even tried to get in contact with them, with Microsoft, on 2 separate occasions to kind of relay more information to me, because there's very few articles, and Microsoft itself have not come out with the numbers that have been sold, any specific progress that has come with them, even though that any of the companies that have invested into them will typically give positive feedback. And I can't give you anything more about the Windows 10 operating system other than the Windows Mixed Reality platform. I think that I also stated earlier. Unfortunately, my computer cannot run the Mixed Reality platform program because you have to have 16 gigabytes of RAM, which for some computers nowadays, like for gaming computers, that's a typical thing that some people will have, but just for computers that would need to just work on coding, that is way over natural requirements. So the Microsoft HoloLens kind of runs on a higher platform, which would make up for its cost. The original Microsoft HoloLens did come out at $5,000, and the HoloLens 2 was $3,500, I believe, that you could pay for both in monthly plans. That kind of still is a bit of a high price nowadays, which would make sense. But the Windows Mixed Reality portion is a specific application that is run on the Windows 10 operating system. And it's basically to show off the augmented and virtual reality aspects of the platform, as well as to run applications, do educational applications, and play games on it. So basically it does all 3 of those things. The Windows Mixed Reality, or specifically Windows Mixed Reality, like many virtual reality headsets, the Microsoft Oculus and Vive headsets can use the Windows Mixed Reality platform to run applications and games. So it's not only for Oculus and or it's not only for Microsoft. It can also be used for Oculus and Vive, which is pretty cool in my opinion. But specifically, the Microsoft HoloLens runs on Windows Mixed Reality, which is pretty specific, and that's because Microsoft hasn't strived away from it being a feature in its operating system. And just like the Xbox that was stated earlier, when you have the Microsoft HoloLens on your face, like when you wear it, it's basically, it twists how the Windows operating system typically works and looks. So it basically does the exact same features, but it just looks a bit different, I guess, if you kind of can't understand that. So Windows Mixed Reality basically works with the headset's proper functioning capabilities. And that basically just means that it tries to work the headset to the fullest of its extent. And what I got from it is basically most coders will try to typically rotate or revolve their coding and their tests around the mixed reality platform. Again, there is not a lot of public information on the headset. If I was able to use the Windows Mixed Reality application on my computer, then I probably would have been able to give more information about it. However, all I was really able to understand is that if you don't have a Microsoft HoloLens, you can use your Oculus or your Vive headsets, plug it into your computer, and use Windows Mixed Reality specifically on any Windows operating system computer. And play games or run applications through there. So Oculus and Vive, again, can still use Windows Mixed Reality. But I wasn't able to see anything more than the Windows Mixed Reality store, which is where you buy products that have been put on there. And again, Microsoft has kind of been very private about this because even though it's educational, it's been very business-like. So like I said, this is not a consumer product. This is a company product. So the future of the HoloLens and virtual reality. Where will the HoloLens take us with its education and experiments? I believe that with this, we'll be able to strive and have new opportunities that will be created for us in many different fields. In engineering, we'll be able to create buildings and a bunch of different pieces of technology without actually having to use resources and seeing their success rate, which is kind of a bit like Minecraft if you think about it, but this is just to a more realistic state. With scientists and doctors, I believe that we'll be able to save more people with being able to properly train someone with a front point of view, or a first person point of view on how stuff should naturally work. Where do I see virtual reality in the next couple of decades? I kind of see it more with the idea of Ready Player One, which is a movie that came out back in 2018, which basically this movie strives that people that are all throughout the world basically live through the virtual reality headset, which is on the main character's head. And it kind of basically reflects all natural movement that the person will create. I don't really see us being at that point. I kind of think that we'll be able to move stuff with our hands and stuff. It's kind of like this game that came out there that you basically put a band on and you're able to like lift up a ball with it. I can't really think of the name of it, but that's basically how I believe the virtual reality headset, specifically the Microsoft HoloLens, will go. We'll be able to maneuver much better with the Microsoft HoloLens, so it'll be able to track more. It'll be able to make more concepts and predict. So then we're able to properly function better in virtual reality rather than just having like controllers and stuff. We'll be able to lift a hand and close our fist, or to make a fist, and the headset will track that and reflect. Where do I believe virtual reality will take us? I believe it'll take us to something like Ready Player One, or this anime called Sword Art Online, which basically you would have to sit down and the characters in Sword Art Online basically have to lay down and they start the virtual reality headset, and it basically has a neurological block, which means any functions in the person's body are then reflected into the headset and not into the physical world. I really hope something like that would happen, but I do not believe that'll probably would be within our lifetime. I think something more realistic like Ready Player One will happen, where we're able to still be conscious in the real world and be able to properly reflect something that happens in the game. So other than that, I have the resources here, and if you want to go check any of the headsets described in this presentation, I have direct links to all four of them. Any questions?
Quick question or comment. It seems like this Microsoft HoloLens still proprietary, still has not been a whole lot of public information. Have you compared to other competitor that readily available, such as, I think you mentioned about is Oculus product, is it part of Samsung thing?
Oculus, okay, so Oculus is basically their operating systems for the Go and the Quest are Android operating systems, and the Vive is a Steam, like the Vive Cosmos is a Steam operating system. In terms of both of them being, if I know that with Oculus they've sold millions, and with Vive they basically sold the exact same. Vive is a bit more expensive than the Oculus, but neither one come up to being anywhere close to the Microsoft HoloLens. In terms of public information, the thing that I know about the Microsoft HoloLens is that it's not, like I said, it's not consumer based. So basically, if a company wants to invest into the headset, they'll have to call, email, or whatever beforehand and state that they want to have a headset created. So all headsets are specifically created for the company consumers that buy them.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say that's probably only within the thousands, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So I think we run out of time. Anyone has any question? One more question before I think we call for today. Anyone has any question? All right, let's do this. Let's call for today. And I think next time, let me quickly show the order of presentation, okay? So if, go ahead, Chris, unshare your screen and then let me quickly share my screen.
How do you get off of the screen?
Yeah. It's okay. Is someone see my presentation, my PowerPoint?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, so next we're gonna continue on with Ryan on Docker 2 and Garrett, Robbie, but I think if David show up, I'm gonna have David to present before Ryan, okay? So I think this time we have 5, 6, 7. I think next time let's have 6 or 7 or 8, so that we'll be able to use what time we have left here. All right. Otherwise, any question, guys? I think I enjoyed a whole lot with all this presentation. Okay. I think it gives us different perspective, and at least for me, as an expert in operating system, I see connection. I mean, all fingerprint all your presentation that related to what we cover in the class. I mean, such as what Chris present, virtual reality. In fact, it's just a user interface that give you like immerse yourself into the environment. Okay, so instead of mouse, the regular, like the display, keyboard, and all those, I think it's become just headset, some sensor. I would say that in the future, it should have, you guys probably heard about radar sensor that already start appear in some device. So I believe that, some of those sensor would be together with, instead of the display, the mouse, the voice, the glove and everything else. I'm start seeing more and more, and then the advancement. I see a lot of application, just like Chris mentioned. Beside that, I see like, flight, whatever those, the training for pilot, whatever that flight simulator, remote, whatever medicine, whatever that telemedicine aspect and different other application. Okay.
But yeah, I have a friend who actually has used the aerospace or the airplane application that you were just talking about. Which has been used here at Louisiana Tech.
Yeah, because there are other, competing technology, but it's much more expensive. You guys probably have you heard about the cave? The cave is just like the whole 180 or 360 screen that surround you with the sound, and then you can create some visual effects there. So instead of wearing it, you can both wear and also there's a cave around you. Google the cave screen or something like that. Okay. All right, guys. So we'll come back next time. I'm looking forward to hear more, and I think this is good. I enjoy. And by the way, I'm gonna post this on Moodle. Okay. And the next quiz gonna come in tomorrow. I'm gonna post the next quiz, and the deadline would be the Sunday midnight. But also I anticipate at least we have one more quiz, which is related to this presentation. So pay good attention to your colleague presentation, because it could be a question in the quiz. All right, guys. So stay safe and see you next.
Dr. Box,
yes,
I do have a question. For the people who have presented already, will our grades be posted, or we can post them all at once?
I think I'll post all at once. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Okay.
I have a question about our presentations.
If we changed them, do we need to resubmit them or send them to you, or
Yeah,
what do we
yeah,
need
yeah.
to do?
Just resubmit and resubmit them. So then I'll figure it out whether I can download, because I don't see option that I can download, but I can view in PDF. But I rather to have original file and then put in my Google Drive and then send or post the link on our Moodle so everyone can access each other presentation, because maybe perhaps Carrick may be interested in the AI that presented by Steven, or maybe another guy may be interested in Chris on this Microsoft, HoloLens. Then you will be able to access each other materials there, So in this case, we have 36 and one person deep dive into one subject, but 34 of them know the rest of this technology. Wouldn't be cool, So that's why I think I really enjoy this presentation after we have give you a good foundation, Any other question? If not, have a good weekend, guys, and see you next Tuesday. It's gonna be the same Zoom session, exactly the same link, but I will repost it. All right, guys. So
Okay.
yes.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Have a good day.
Have a good day, guys.
I do have a question though.
Yes, go ahead.
How would a
I'll
quiz?
hang on for 5 more minutes. Anyone want to drop off? Go ahead and drop off. Everyone has question. You guys can continue asking me. Go ahead.
How are the quizzes graded?
The quiz is already graded.
Okay, so the grade that's on Moodle is our grade.
For the quiz, because I did some automation. I mean, it's a little harder, but there's a way that I could program or do something. The homework, I asked my grader to grade the homework. So I think you have, I think we have 2 homework that need to be graded. So I'm pushing my grader to finish grading, and potentially you may have 2 more homework. One is the texture that last time I gave you more sample code or more idea how to proceed. If you guys need more time, I may just create a separate Zoom session and talk more. So if I get more requests and want me to walk you through or give you more idea on the texture, I'll be happy, but I would want to reserve the rest of the meeting class from 8 to 9:40 Tuesday and Thursday on this presentation. And then, if you guys want more idea or more discussion about the texture, I could maybe create a separate session. It could be weekend or weekday or any time that you guys available, All right, any other question, guys?
Not that I can think of.
Okay, well, if not, then have a great weekend, and we'll see you next Tuesday. All right, guys. I'm gonna sign off and stop the recording, and then I'll post this discussion on YouTube and upload the link later on. All right.
Okay.
Have a good weekend. Bye.
You too.
Bye.